Cool.
All right, I'm here with Allie Kieffer, all the way from Kenya. Allie, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Where are you in Kenya right now?
Iten.
Iten. Okay, so
It's like
actually,
the
yeah,
distance capital of Kenya.
and that's kind of like the running capital, right? It's all the photos you see of like all these amazing runners kind of running by on these trails and stuff every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's crazy. Like
yeah,
I was did a long run today because Saturday is a big long run day in Kenya. And you feel like you're moving and you're working really hard and like people fly by you. And
yeah.
women too. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so I want to get into that a little bit. But first, I guess when I think of this kind of this moment you're having, I mean, I first became really aware of you after New York, as I'm sure a lot of people did. And I think the tendency is to see that kind of performance and go, "Oh, this person's just like you know overnight success," or this is kind of like
Yeah.
this. Shut up one day and had this amazing race, but it was really like a 7 or 8 year kind of journey out of college, but you've been running since high school, right?
Yeah. I actually joined a running club when I was 5 years old.
As one does. And where was that?
Yeah. It was in Long Island. That's where I'm from.
Oh,
And my
gotcha.
sister, the crossing guard, told my family that my sister is pretty fast. So they signed her
Mhm.
up for this running club. And it was a working family, so I sort of had to go too. And my mom convinced the club to let me be the youngest person ever to join. And we just like ran for Tic Tacs. So it was not very serious, but it was a lot of fun.
that could be the name of your memoir, Running for Tic Tacs. So when you're 5, were you like a regular member? You like, every Saturday or whatever, you join this club and show up and do the runs?
Yeah, it was during the week. I think it was like one
Uh-huh.
or two times a week. And literally we ran like 100 meters or 50 meters and we got
Okay.
tic tac and then, we would wait a little while and then go again. So we
Right.
weren't running a lot, but it was
Right.
just like more like showing the like learning how we did like dances around running and it was fun.
Yeah. And where in Long Island are you from? Because I'm from Jersey, so I'm
Okay, I'm
from.
from West Islip
Oh,
on the
gotcha. Yeah,
South Shore
my
near
family's
Babylon.
all my Queens family all came out from like Richmond Hill, and they ended up moving to Wantagh. So I've been down that that corridor a lot. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So then, and you went to then
Yeah.
college in at Wake Forest and then Arizona State, right? And you ran
Yes.
on both of those teams too.
Yes.
And so, what
Yeah.
was that? So,
I did.
I tend to think of because I didn't get into running until I was like firmly an adult, like till I was like 23. Um, but when I look at the
Okay.
college program, it seems like if you can survive it, you kind of come out as this just incredible runner. But it seems like there's a lot of people that kind of fall by the wayside in that program just because of the intensity of kind of the college. Or is that not
Yeah.
accurate? Is that kind of a false image that I have of it in
I
my
think
head?
that for women, I just think that a lot of the best runners in the country in high school really haven't necessarily developed yet. And they
Right.
get to college and they're like the seventh person on their team, but they had won nationals in high school. And their body starts to change. And like if you could just stick with it, you'll get stronger on the other end. But it does take like a couple years to kind of like figure that whole like change out and like running with your new body and moving up the ranks in your own team and in the national rankings. And I think it's just mentally like a really frustrating period. I don't think enough coaches talk to the athletes about this is what you should expect when you go to college.
Mm.
Instead, I think you get sold on the idea that like, oh, you're a national champion in high school, you're going to be a national champion in college. And it's just not really the way it works, I think.
Yeah, that's fascinating actually, because it kind of, in a way, ties into the essay that you wrote for was it
Yeah.
Self magazine, right?
Yeah.
That I've been sharing around with friends. I feel like there's this weird. Um, I think it's being discussed a lot more now, but obviously, running is wonderful. We all love it, whether you're an elite or someone just trying to break 3 hours in the marathon like myself. And yet, there is a certain aspect to it where even though it's perceived as like a very healthy pursuit, it can be also very unhealthy. And you see a lot of, amenorrhea and that kind of thing and stress fractures with women, but also men too, having, kind of
Yeah,
weird food issues and stuff. So what was that
for sure.
experience like then when you were in college? I mean, was there anyone there to kind of guide you through that, or did you just kind of like trial and error? Cause you seem to have come out okay.
So in college, like the college coach really wanted us all to be as lean as we possibly could. So she would tell us to drink hot tea before dinner, so to shrink our stomachs and we wouldn't eat that much at dinner.
That's crazy.
And so I think I would like run away from those meetings and be like, I'm gonna eat all of the cookies, like
right.
And I kind of feel like there were kind of two camps, as some people drank the hot tea or they just had the salad bar, and then there are other people who maybe ended up like eating too much or eating the wrong food on the opposite side of the spectrum to like almost make up for the negative messages that we're hearing. And I just know for myself that I do better if people like give me positive encouragement rather than like, you're eating the wrong things, like don't eat food, you need to be lean, like you're too fat. And then I ended up going to Arizona State, like you mentioned, for grad school, and there just was not even a conversation. We never talked about food. And like I wasn't too lean, but I like leaned out more. And I ran well, and I was healthy, and country season was good. Like I ran better than I ever had at Wake really quickly. So
you're saying there was no discussion around food, meaning there was no discussion around like don't eat food, basically.
But not even.
They kind of like just let you eat food.
It wasn't like you should eat this or you should be this weight. It was just like never discussed. So just like I actually think not bring it up and let everyone do their own thing. Like no one was overweight and no one was too lean.
Right.
Like it didn't actually think that your worth of a runner was in how much you weighed, which is not.
Right.
But that's kind of the message you get when you're told to do it.
Right. Well, it's kind of insane because like in that essay that you wrote, I shared it with a friend of mine who I'd been having a similar conversation with. She's not really a runner, but we had been talking about sort of body image issues on a hike earlier in that week. And so I sent her that article when I read it. And she saw your picture that was accompanying the article and said, she's considered big? And I said, well, like, I said, because to her, you know, you're like this amazing athlete, which you are, right? And like, you know, strong looking and all that. And I said, well, you know, in the world of like elite running, I suppose that is like the comparison point where you see people that just genuinely don't look, you know, that well. And I think it's really an interesting time that we're in now where it seems like the conversation is shifting a lot more to, yeah, performance is important, but so is your health, and kind of finding that nexus point. And maybe there are periods of time where you push, you know, beyond health a little bit, like you're overreaching for a race, but the idea that you have to kind of be a healthy human being, you know, with a mentally, physically, and all the rest of it to do this sport well seems like a really important kind of a thing to have out there. And I'm surprised it's taken this long too.
Yeah. I also think that what I've seen, at least in college, I think you see more people who they eat too little and then they do really well for a short period of time and they get injured.
Right.
And you stop seeing those people in the professional ranks because you can't make it anymore. If you don't eat, you don't recover. You actually need to be consistent, and you can't take those periods of injury. So
yeah,
like I don't think Shalane Flanagan like fuels her body. It seems like, I don't know her personally, but she's a cookbook and she writes about it, Instagrams about it. And like, she seems like she eats healthy, and I think everyone should eat healthy, but she definitely eats.
Right.
So if you're not eating, not recovering, you can't put in more work.
Yes. And Alexi Pappas, who's really, I think, a cool sort of interesting runner as well. She often will post on her Instagram like questions that she gets from, it seems like a lot of high school runners, and it's amazing. Have you seen this? The amazing.
I follow her on Instagram.
Okay, yeah. So some of her stories that she'll post, you know, sort of images that, you know, of messages she's gotten from high school runners, maybe college too. And so many of them are like, I'm afraid to eat. I'm worried about getting fat. I'm worried about getting slow if I eat too much. And all of her responses are like, dude, eat. You're running 80 miles a week and you're 17. Eat. You need the food. And it's funny you mentioned that we're having this conversation because last night I did not eat enough dinner, like just kind of didn't have enough prepared. And I had done like a 90-minute, which is for me a long bike ride at sort of like my, you know, aerobic area, and woke up at 2 a.m. starving and like did not sleep well. So there you have it.
So it's funny because in Kenya, like they eat a really big dinner and then don't eat before the run because it bothers their stomachs, or most people eat, and then they'll eat again after. But like in America, we hear like don't eat that big of a dinner.
Right.
You know, and so like, oh, like we're gonna stuff ourselves, like not used to this, but they're lean and they're like the fastest people in the world. So
Right.
I don't know. They can do it.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah.
So,
So I'm curious then. So we can jump around a little bit. So as we've mentioned a few times now, you're in Kenya. You've been there since what, like January, or when did you move out there?
January.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
January.
I'm sorry?
I got here January 13th, so it's
Oh,
been
wow.
like 6 weeks.
Crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'd heard you on Lindsey Himes' podcast talking about how it was sort of like, well, the places in the U.S. that are elevation are we're very cold right now, and this kind of just seemed like an appealing place for a number of reasons. So what went into that decision to move there? Had you been to Kenya before?
No.
Okay, so never been to Kenya. Okay. And so you obviously Iten is a really popular place to train, and but how did you come to the choice?
Yeah, I didn't really think enough about it, to be honest. I just was like, I think I'm going to go to Kenya. And I was in Colorado with, what happened was that Wesley Courier, who went to the Olympics for Kenya in 2016, his wife is from Canada. And after New York City Marathon, I've never met her. She messaged me on Facebook, was like, you should come train in Kenya. Like, you can stay with me and whatever. And I was like, sounds really appealing. Like,
that's great. Yeah.
A good time to go to Kenya. It's really cold here. I don't particularly like winter. So I kind of like thought about it, I guess. And me thinking about it is like, yeah, I'm going to go do that. So
yeah.
I ended up getting invited to a race in Doha. I was like, well, I'm already at this part of the world. What's another couple hour flight to Kenya? So,
and you won that race.
Yeah. So went really well. So then the next day I hopped on a flight. And I thought I was going to like meet up with Renato Canova, and ended up that his wife was a little sick and he just got back to Kenya. So I'm glad I didn't wait for him, but I kind of landed and like didn't have anywhere to stay. And so I messaged a friend, or really a guy that I had met once at a race, but he was Kenyan, and he happened to be in Eldoret that day for like one more day.
Right.
And I was like, can you pick me up from the airport? Like, I don't have anywhere to stay. And he was like, you can, like I'm leaving the next day, but you can stay at my family's place. I was like, that just seems really awkward. I don't think I can stay with a bunch of people I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking like, what did I do? I'm way over my head here. Maybe I should just go home. But the next day he ended up dropping me off at Betsy Sinai's house. And she's basically just like taking care of me. So we're in like an apartment complex. I have an apartment that's like catty cornered to her, and she kind of taught me the ropes, got me like massage therapist, a pacer.
Yeah.
I have a cook now.
Incredible.
She helped me burn an apartment here. So
yeah.
She's a boss. She like makes moves. I'm like, I need a bed. She's like, okay. 20 minutes later, there's like, a bed and a frame. I'm like, wow. This is kind of, I was like, I think I want to get a couch. She was like, okay, cool. Does this one look nice? I'm like, yeah, that's cute. All right, delivered.
Yeah.
It's like, it's insane.
So she runs the place.
She definitely seems to run this place.
Yeah. And I heard you on that podcast with Lindsay. I think it was the first or second appearance that you made on it, but you're talking about how you had done a decent amount of backpacking sort of through Europe and, earlier in life. And did that kind of experience maybe make you a little more like, all right, I'll figure it out. I'll go to Kenya. We'll make it work.
So I think I've always been that way. My mom's really adventurous, and she took us to like a bunch of different, my sister and I to a bunch of different countries when we were younger. Like growing up, we always took a big vacation every year. So I've had a lot of experiences. My mom's the type of person who thinks like, if you go to a steakhouse, you're going to get a steak. Like, if like you should experience whatever that place, the specialty of that place is. So I'm used to just like diving into something and like not being stuck with my own, like, this is what I do. Because I think if I had that attitude, if I was like, I'm going to do all the American things that I do, like it wouldn't work here. Like I wasn't eating meat before I came here, and we eat meat like every night. Right. Like I wasn't drinking milk, and I have Kenyan tea like 3 times a day. I love it. So I just think that like being able to take the experience, enjoy it, and not be stuck in my own place. has helped me in like here and anywhere else that I can just kind of assimilate into the culture.
Yeah. So that seems like it probably has served you very well over the past few years, kind of navigating just the ups and downs of a professional running career. I mean, are there points that kind of stick out to you? I mean, I guess we can kind of, I assume at this point, a lot of people kind of know like the bullet points, but I guess if I could summarize briefly, it was sort of like you got out of school, were sort of working with Puma, right? You were sponsored by Puma, and we're training with Brad Hudson's group. That kind of didn't. So I guess let's go, I guess, chronologically for a moment. So that happens. You go to college, you're signed, and what's that all about? Like being sponsored suddenly.
So I didn't get signed right out of college.
Okay.
I actually had, when I had gotten a scholarship to college, and I ended up using my college fund that my parents gave me to run post-college. So I kind of like self-funded the whole like professional running thing.
And what was that like at the time?
So
what did that involve?
Kind of stressful because my family, like especially my mom, was like, she's works at a bank, like she's high up in Bank of America, and was thinking like, how are you going to make money running? And
right.
I wasn't really focused on making money. I was spending all my money. And she's like, don't you want to use that house? Like, you know, so it was a little bit stressful to get like everyone's support and think this is a good idea. But it felt like I could be a lot better, and I wasn't like done with everything I thought I could achieve. So then I ended up doing like better that first year, and the assistant coach at Arizona State coached me for the first year. Now he's at the Air Force, Ryan Cole.
Okay.
So, and he coached Shelby Houlihan. So he was my coach after Arizona State. And then he got the full-time coaching job at Arizona State of the women. And he didn't really have time for me anymore. And so I also felt like it was, I was doing everything on my own, and I was ready to like be with a group. So I moved to Colorado and joined Brad Hudson's group. And then
And how does that work? Well, like you kind of reach out to them first and say, hey, like here, I'm fast. Here are my times. Like, this is who I am. And then like they invite you to come out, or how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, with most, like with groups like Bowerman Track Club, I think it's a bit harder. And I know I've tried to get into other groups, and a lot of people have said no because they didn't have like requirements, or they couldn't fund another person. Maybe like Northern Arizona Elite tried to get in there, and they were like, maybe you're too old, or like haven't done anything well recently, and giving you a chance takes this funding away from somebody else. And
right.
But Brad's not funded, so he's kind of more open to take on people because there's nothing really to lose for him, right? If you don't run super well, like, okay, but we both try. And if someone who's funded tries, then they've just wasted a lot of money if it doesn't work out. So those are definitely harder to get into, and they have time standards and depends on how much money is available. But I just was self-funding myself. So I moved to Colorado, and Brad was super cool and helped me a lot. And I just think I ran more miles, like the workouts were longer. It was just a whole different level, and I was able to train with more people. Like Molly Pritz at the time came out there too, and Adrian Herzog, who ended up testing positive for EPO, unfortunately. But there are people out there who kind of get pushed by. And I made the Olympic trials for the 10K in 2012, but then I got injured.
What was the injury?
So I got a stress reaction.
Where? In your tibia or?
My tibia,
yeah.
And so I stayed another year after that, but I just wasn't really running very well. I don't know if it was, maybe we should just taken some downtime, and I had pushed a little bit too much, and I wasn't really handling the training anymore. I just kind of ran out of money. And I was sponsored by Puma, but I was wearing their gear for free. I wasn't getting any money.
Right.
So, although that was cool because you felt like you had a kit.
For sure. Well, you see on Instagram too, all the unboxing, they get their spring kit in the mail, and you're like, oh my God, look at all those shoes, look at all that stuff. But I guess you can't eat those shoes necessarily.
No.
Right.
And Boulder's not inexpensive. It's expensive to do. So then in 2013, I just left. I went back to New York. I got a job nannying in New York City, and I like spent a few years nannying for families in the city.
Right. And so
And
this is kind of like, what year are we talking about here? Like from
that
when to
was
when?
2013 to 2016.
Okay. So pretty recent history.
Yeah.
And so during that time, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I totally quit running immediately. I was like,
Wow.
I'm retired, like I don't think like from what I've done in the sport and like all the training I've done, I don't think I'm like gonna make that next jump to make the Olympics.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna walk away and just be happy with what I have achieved. Like I was totally fine with maybe the Olympic trials, like pat yourself on the back and
Mm-hmm.
kind of move on with life. Like that was one phase and you're ready for the next. So I didn't really know what the next thing was. I just knew that I've always loved kids and I've always loved running. So that's where the like nannying came in.
Yeah.
I have a psychology degree, which you kind of need to go to grad school for and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think I'm an office person, so I just gravitated towards that, and I had a lot of fun working with some families, and getting paid to like brunch, which is crazy. So then I started coaching people in the city because I worked like 32 hours a week. Like it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, I got paid full time, which is amazing, but I didn't work full time hours because I worked the weekends. So, and then I had one weekend off a month. So like 1 week I would only work 12 hours.
Okay.
So I just had a lot of free time. And so I started coaching people, and I got this one client, Edward Hartman, who he'd run a 2:44 marathon, and he was getting better and better every week. And like, I couldn't stay with him anymore because I was doing his one at a week.
Right.
And so in the fall of 2015, or like that winter, like I went away for Christmas, and I was like, I need to get into shape because I need to, like, I can't be the best coach I want to be. I can't push him at the end of the workout. So
you were meeting him for that workout every week, and you wanted to kind of like just be able to show him like, this is what I want you to do. And you were having trouble.
I wanted to be able to make him better, but like
right.
how I had in Colorado is people to push me. I wanted to push him.
Right. And how did you guys hook up initially?
I was running for a club, New York Athletic Club, who I still run for.
Sure. That's awesome.
And I won the like team championships.
Okay.
So then I think like David Monty had tweeted something about it, and then he clicked on me and it said that I was a coach. And I was like, hey, I'm looking for a coach.
Awesome.
So then I started getting into decent shape in 2016, but it wasn't going to make the Olympics. I wasn't probably going to make nationals. So I was like, when everyone's trying to make the Olympics, so I thought that was a really good plan. So I ran all the time. Like I remember I flew to Texas for a race from New York City. I got second American. I flew back that day, same day, to New York City. And the next morning I did a race in Central Park. I was just so running. And
so you got back into it. You had the bug again, kind of. And sort of the spark was back a little bit.
I wasn't close to where it had been.
Right.
To be honest, I was pretty far behind.
In a way, that's probably freeing, right? Because you're like, well, I'm not there, so I can just enjoy this, I would assume.
Yeah. So I actually made enough money where I quit my job, and my boyfriend and I went away for 2 months and back through Europe. And then when we came back, we found new jobs, and we moved to Buffalo, New York. And he's a biomedical engineer, so I just kind of followed him because he does a great job. And then we started going to CrossFit. So I was lifting a lot of weights, and I was like, you guys have to go light on me because I'm a runner. And they were like, all right, that's cool. Like, how much do you run a week? And I was like, I haven't been running maybe 20 miles the past month. And I was like, how do I self-identify as a runner, but I'm not actually running? Like, I need to get back into this. So I started running a little bit. I talked to a coach in Buffalo, and I was like, I want to make nationals. She was like, you want to do what? Like, you're running 20 miles a month.
Right.
Nationals, basically laughing at me. And so I think because of the lifting, things came back a lot quicker, and I was actually I was doing better quickly, and I could see it. I knew in my workouts I was having a good season early. I could tell that in like March. I remember calling my mom and I was like, hey, do you want to like book some tickets to some flights, in June, like for nationals? I'm gonna go to Portland. And my mom took the gamble and came out with me. So that was really cool.
That's great.
Yeah. It's kind
And
of
so
how
this current era began for you.
Interesting because like my boyfriend's really into it, really supportive, and so are my parents. And it seemed like last time I was doing it, it was kind of like poking that I was like, I really want to do this. Like, do you guys believe in me? And they're like, you want to do what? Now I'm like, hey, things are going well. And they're like, heck yeah, we want to be a part of this. Like, my dad hasn't been back to New York since my sister's funeral, and he came back for 2 races this year. So
wow.
It was really cool to like get a lot of that support.
Yeah. So the CrossFit thing, just jump back to that for a second. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a really interesting aspect. I'm really into, or the past few years, I got really into strength training and like functional movement stuff, and somewhat inspired by some of the CrossFit, at least ideas of functionality and if not doing the proper workouts, but I think that's a really interesting aspect that is kind of taking hold right now, I think, with more runners, where like, hey, get a really strong body first. Because I had a lot of injuries when I first began running, because I just went out and, as everyone does, like join a club and run 18 miles at whatever pace, and then no idea of how you're actually moving or what muscles are meant to be firing. So do you think that so talk about the CrossFit experience. I mean, were there really particular things that you were working on when you were there, like to address imbalances, or what?
No. So I had no idea what I was doing. I was just at CrossFit. I wasn't running a ton. So I was probably like, I had been running 20 miles a month.
Mm-hmm.
So
which is probably a nice threshold, right? For like doing lifting and that.
Then, so as I added more running, even like at 40 miles a week, I still could go to the gym like 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow.
I was also working. So
that's
it was
impressive.
just like I could CrossFit or do a run. So I kind of balanced that a little bit. And then somewhere in the season, like after a few months, I was like, I'm running enough now where I don't think I need to do a WOD. Like the endurance part of that, or like to do things as fast as I possibly can. Like, I think I want to lift more weight and do a few reps and and then like take a break, like how like more people lift rather than. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm doing Olympic lifts and like CrossFit inspired lifting, I guess.
Yeah.
And like I put a lot of weight, or like as much as I can carry. So like I'll squat with, I feel like I'm maxing out because I'm just doing 5 reps.
Right.
It's like as much as I can do for 5 times.
That's great.
But so I just then before New York City, I stopped lifting because one of the physical therapists I was seeing was saying that like I should do a lot of lateral movements. So I started working on all like balance kind of things that you're talking about, different kind of movements. But I like lifting. Like I think it's fun. I like being strong. I think it helps my running form. I think it makes me a better runner. So, and now I'm in Kenya, so I'm not really working with a therapist. So I'm just lifting. So I'm sure I want to get back to Buffalo and to do lateral movements and stuff. That's the part that So I'm
No, I'm with you though, because I feel like when I had sort of my first like real coach, my dog's just staring at me. Hey Lou, he's hey buddy, there you go. Now he's laying down. He was like, "What are you doing? Why are you talking to the corner? Why?" I'm in my kitchen right now, so he's like, "Why are you just talking into the window?" So I had my first like real coach, this great woman named Tani Prazak, who has her own podcast and is more of a triathlon coach, but she got me into the lifting side of it, and it's really empowering because like I had been a really like just skinny runner. I'd been to the gym in high school, like kind of like, but did like New Jersey bro lifting, which is like no leg day ever, only buys and tries, back and chest ever. So you're like your little like toothpicks legs and
I see those people at the gym like, why
are you here? Yeah, exactly right. Like I always think like when I'm 80, like if I fall off the couch, like are my biceps going to get me up, or like my posterior chain get me up off the ground? But yeah, so I think like when she had me get a kettlebell first, like a 45-pound kettlebell. and just doing like, like goblet squats and kettlebell swings. And it's amazing how like looking back now, because I ran the New York Marathon in 2014. And every so often, like, Facebook will show like, hey, here's a memory from like 4 years ago, whatever. And it'll be a picture of the New York Marathon and me running it. I look so skinny and like runnery, and like and now that I'm like, I've put on probably like a solid like 15 pounds since then of muscle, and I'm sure other things too. But it feels so much better. Like you get out of bed in the morning and you're like, oh, I feel strong today. I'm not just like this little, kind of like.
Also, I'm a complete believer that it makes you better at a marathon.
Totally.
Like, I think you need more reserves than people think.
Yes.
Like, see like Mary Katani winning the race and she's a microscopic person, you think, oh, I should look like that. I actually lifted some weights, she might be a better runner.
Right. And it's a weird balance, right? Because I mean, like on the one hand, like you have this kind of old school mentality that I find very like romantic and appealing. That Bill Rogers, like they weren't deadlifting in the gym; they were just like running 130 miles a week with their little, super little thin Asics or whatever, Adidas. But then you're like, I don't know, like it just seems like, do you want to be a good runner or it's a good like athlete / like functional human body? And from that comes good running,
Yeah, but I think that the Americans are doing so well right now, especially on the women's side. And those, like Shalane Flanagan looks strong. Like she's
totally
thin, but has muscle on her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even like Jordan Hasay will post a lot on Instagram, like she's in the gym all the time, So I'd like to see, I'll be curious to know what, like if down the road there's a consensus reached like with the elites, where it's like, okay, this is the balance, right? Because right now it seems, or at least for a long time, it seemed like just running and then like body weight and very, very lightweight. And that's shifting now, thankfully. But I'll be curious to see like, down the road, like will you see, because I mean, it's also a matter of balance, right? Like for you, so how many miles a week are you running right now, typically?
Like 110 to 115 a week.
Which is a ton of mileage. And so you're also
in Kenya.
Right. And so
you can't help but be inspired by being
right.
here.
Oh no, I think it's amazing. I wasn't saying it. Yeah, critically. It's incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I took a day off on purpose, like a week ago. And I couldn't leave my room because I was like, if I leave this apartment complex, I know I'm going to see someone running and be like, you go for a run too.
That's amazing.
Like, in the morning and you see hundreds of people running. It's insane.
So with that mileage, are you able to still lift and recover pretty well, you feel like, and work it all in?
Yeah. So,
that's great.
Like today was long run day, and then I'll use like the resistance band or just like do some push-ups, like not heavy lifting. Because I just think that like that's such a strain on your body.
Yeah, totally.
But then on other workout days, I usually lift on a workout day. So I basically like do like squat, lunge, deadlift, like all the major things, or like then the day of the week that I'm going to lift, I'll do the same muscle group, but maybe a different movement. So it's just not like repetitive.
Right. Wow. That's great.
Push press a lot. There's some things that I like hang cleans. I'd love to do some cleans, but I'm really bad at that technique. And it's not. I feel like this thing injure myself. I'll just wait till I get back to Buffalo when I have someone that's watching me do it properly and don't mess something up. Even the deadlift sometimes I just like put too much on the bar and my back gets a little tight after. So I'm trying to be smart about that, of not like going over my limit. Yeah. I love to squat, so I probably squat every time I go to the gym.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of like for me, like, I'll go on Instagram and you see all these amazing, like, I don't know if you follow like the On It Academy and like all their stuff, but like they have these steel maces and steel clubs. And so I picked up some of those and like now I'm doing these like overhead swing things. And my coach, Tani, used to say to me like, look, this is like, I would do too much stuff, and I, lift a ton and every day. And then I go out running and she'd say to me like, do you want to be the best like kettlebell guy or do you want to be the best runner that you can be? And I was like, right. Okay. So for me, I had to like scale it back a little bit on the weights because I was doing kind of two things like full on, right. But yeah, that's really cool to hear.
I think I could use some help because it's just me creating my own program.
Right.
And like Brad does the running side, or we kind of collaborate on the running side now, but like he's like, what are you doing for lifting? And then he's not really like trying to tweak it. I don't know if he would tweak it or not.
Right.
I don't know if he knows that side of it,
Hmm.
basically. So
But it sounds like it's working out pretty well for you, you know?
yeah, I'm sure I'm not maximizing it perfectly. Like I'm
Right.
sure there's supposed to be some kind of loading and then like you move into like explosion, there should
Right,
be
right,
phases.
right,
Same thing every time.
right.
So there's definitely gains to be made, but I probably won't change anything before London. And
Yeah,
then
that makes
just
sense.
it's also hard to like be a bunch of different places. Like
Hmm.
Buffalo's my home camp, but I'm in Kenya. Before that, I was in Colorado. I'll probably go back to Colorado after London. Then like heat train somewhere because I want to go to track nationals actually
Hmm.
after London.
That would be 10K
And
or
yeah, 10K.
gotcha.
So I have the time from last year, so I think I can kind of just show up.
Yeah.
So
There's
as
a
long as I
really,
come
oh, sorry, go
off,
ahead. No, sorry, there's a bit
as
of
long
delay,
as
so
I
I keep
come
like
off
interrupting you.
oh yeah, it's like a little bit of a lag.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I come off of London, okay, I'm gonna go to the track and just try to go to nationals and then take my time off after that.
Awesome. And what will time off resemble? Like a month, a week? You don't know yet?
So after I do sort of know. So after
Okay.
New York City, I took like 9 days completely off, and then like 2.5 weeks of like easy running,
Hmm.
and then I went to Colorado and I started doing workouts there for like a month
Hmm.
before I went to Doha, and then after if London goes well, I'll take like a week off, maybe like five. I think a week off is good, and
Hmm.
then kind of maybe a week of easy and then get back into workouts because there's really not that much time. There's only 2 months, and then I
Right.
need to get ready for track. So I don't have as much time. But
Right.
then after track, I'm going to take like a month off.
Nice. That'll be amazing.
Like maybe 2 to 3 weeks like completely off, and
Yeah.
then like easy running before I build back up.
After,
Because I
I think it,
think that
oh, sorry.
you can get away with it for a certain amount of time, but you need a break after a marathon.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
for
I
sure.
obviously Hall ran 2 marathons pretty close together. Really,
Hmm.
both of them really well. So I think you can get away with that. But I think if you don't take a time off after that second marathon or whatever you're doing after, like it will eventually catch up to you.
Yeah. It seems like even if you feel pretty okay, like I'm sure on a very, very small, like cellular level, the body really is just like, a little delicate for more time than you actually think. I remember seeing, I think it was after Boston maybe, or after, I forget which race it was, but Des Linden, like in the past year or two, she had posted a picture of like her an exchange with her coach, and he's like, "Hey, you coming to the group run tomorrow?" And she said, "No, because I have 21 days off, not 20." And I thought that was really impressive. Like, good for you, taking the time off and really just like enjoying like sleeping in and just resting. Um,
Yeah.
so, two things. One, it would be foolish of me not to ask more about Kenya because it seems like, I mean, just everything about it seems so inspiring, as you've mentioned, like going out your front door and seeing a pack of 100 of the world's best runners running past you. I mean, like I live on a somewhat like bigger running street in West LA, where you see a lot of the running groups converge on Saturday and Sunday mornings. But maybe if I'm
Yeah.
running my own run, I'll see like 30 runners, and I'm so inspired by 30 runners. And
Yeah.
they're probably like they're firmly amateurs, right? No one's setting world records here. So what has been your experience? I mean, from everything from the people to the food to just the vibe of the place.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like today we went to the long run and I have a pacer, so I met him. Like I jogged over to where we start, and it's only 3K from my
Hmm.
apartment. And he was there and with one of his friends, and Kenyans are really big into introductions. So
Hmm.
like you go over and handshake and say your name and hi, and then we start the run. And another one of my friends, and actually a friend from the U.S. is like here visiting. So the three
Oh,
of
cool.
us like are like kind of chatting and running, and then the two like guys are behind us. And then after a mile or so, the new guy Edward was like, "Oh yeah, I ran the Marigami half marathon and won in 60 minutes." Like,
Oh my God.
oh no, like what are you
Oh,
doing something?
60
So
minutes.
yeah, and it's just like we had run. There's a forest like 200 meters from where I live, and so often I'll go in there, but it's really hilly, so you can't really move that fast.
Hmm.
Um, but Betsy and I and like both of our pacers and a few other guys went on this run there, and we didn't run fast. Like it was 8 miles, but it was the hardest run I've ever gone on. And like as soon as I got back to the road that I knew like where we were, I was like, peace out, guys. Like I'm going as slow as I can to get back home because I'm so tired. And then you get back and it's like, oh yeah, the guy who was leading it is a 2:07 marathoner. Like
it's crazy.
Everyone's fast.
Yeah.
And
How
so
you got?
I'll
sorry.
I'll be on the road. Like there's a Moy Ben is a really popular road for people to do workouts, and Saturday's long run. Like I didn't go this week, but last week there were at least 100 people out there, and like you're like I'm like used to getting passed by guys. So I can understand that. I mean, most guys in the U.S. still, if we're out for run, like I can be competitive with them, but obviously here I cannot. It's just they like fly by me like I'm standing still. But women are passing me too, and like you see, it's like, oh, that girl won Boston Marathon. Oh, that's Vivian Chariot. Oh, this girl won Honolulu. Oh, that's the world record holder of the half marathon. Like it's just a never-ending thing where you're like, there are just so many good people here.
Yeah.
And it's humbling. And so that's kind of like one of the things that they talk about a lot is that like to stay humble because there's always someone else coming up and you may be falling back a little bit and not having the best performances of your career. And so always like when you're high, stay humble because when you're low, you want other people to be humble too.
Right.
I think that's really cool. And I've never heard anything about talent, but they talk about like how hard it is. And I do think at 7,800 feet, like it's never easy. So like, because all of the runs are on dirt roads or single track trails, and you're going up and down over like, it feels like massive hills. And so even when you're out for an easy run, like it's painful. There's just no ever easy, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, and is part of that the elevation as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the elevation because you're almost at 8,000 feet. But the roads are a big part of it too because they're uneven and they're rocky.
So kind of like cambered, essentially.
Yeah, and you're like kind of flailing around. So you're using a lot more energy to go the speed you want to go than you would be if you're on like just a pavement road, which is only one pavement road. And people think it's crazy if you want to run on pavement.
Right.
Like, I think I need to get used to this because I'm going back to Buffalo soon and I run on the pavement. So, like,
right.
Callous my leg.
Yeah. So you mentioned like having an easy day or some harder days, or it's always kind of running hard or always running fast. Like, are you using any like heart rate monitor to determine like an easy day, or is it kind of just like totally RPE and just like how you feel and what's easy on the given day?
So I use a heart rate monitor on the hard days, but I tend not to wear it on my easy days and just go to the
Gotcha.
And then like typically like here we got Monday and then Tuesday will be a midweek. So it's like longer and a little bit of a press, like, in between an easy and a hard run, I guess. And so like most runs here in Kenya are progressive. So they'll start out like literally a 10-minute pace.
Right.
And then by the end you're running like 6:30 miles.
Wow.
So it just depends how long you stay towards which side of it. But and then Wednesday's easy, which I'll take like as easy as I want. So some days I felt good, I run 8-minute miles, and some days I don't feel good, I run 9-minute miles. And then Thursday we go back to a workout. Friday's easy, Saturday's a long run. Sunday is like the easiest day in Kenya where people just run usually once. Usually every other day, people run twice a day. So there's people that go 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. Actually, they double at 10 a.m. Or like 6 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Wow.
So if you run any other times, you're kind of like the lone man, people looking at you like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But,
and so like, how are these groups being like organized? Like, is there like one like main coach saying, hey, this is today's run, or who's kind of like getting all this together?
There's a bunch of different groups.
Okay.
But there is like Tuesday and Thursday, they're group fartleks. And I know like Kipsang gives the workouts for one of the groups.
Oh, wow.
But every Tuesday is a minute on, a minute off. So they do 20 by that. And then Thursday's fartlek, because it's just only fartleks, is either 2-1, 3-1, or 5-2.
Okay. And what does that mean? 5-2?
It's like 5 minutes hard.
Oh,
2 minutes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, right. Okay, that makes sense.
But the 5 minutes hard is like all out, and then
Right.
2 minutes is possible.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like, so my like sort of great obsession in life is the Boston Marathon. I went to college in Boston, and I actually, when I was like, before I was even a runner, really, I was 22, 21, something like that. I lived on the marathon course. And so I didn't know what a marathon was even. And then I wake up one morning and there's this marathon going by my front door. I was like, what is this? And so then my final year of college, I actually had a friend drive me to Hopkinton. I hadn't trained. Again, it was not a runner. But I thought, oh, that seems really cool. And back in 2006-ish, they didn't really care if you jumped in. It was kind of, I mean, like you weren't supposed to be a bandit, but they didn't really like stop you. It wasn't like now. So I did the race and I was so blown away by it, on like 5 miles of training or something like that. But now when I go back to Boston, I mean, now I'm kind of ashamed that I snuck in because now it's like this big goal to qualify and like run sub-3 and all that. Yeah. But when I go back to Boston, whether it's, to watch the marathon or just to be there and, visit friends, or if I have some personal or business matters there, being on the Charles River and seeing all of the runners, and it's this like very hollowed ground kind of feeling. And I remember being there for the marathon one year and watching all the elites doing their shakeout run on like the Saturday or Sunday before the race, and just like, like seeing like Buzinesh Deba and all these people just like jogging by, and you're just like high-fiving them. I imagine that part of the appeal of Kenya, now that you've been there for a little while, is just like this kind of almost spiritual component. Like running is so just like inherent to the culture and to the place that it must just seep into your pores in a way that maybe it's harder to do if you're just in like Arizona or something.
I think that it's easy to run here because everyone's doing it. So
right.
It's just kind of part of the culture, and it's like contagious. You can't not want to like lace up your shoes and go out. You feel super lazy when even this is just a normal apartment complex and everybody runs.
Wow.
But I actually feel like a lot of the Kenyans run for money because there's just that much opportunity.
Right. It's a way out.
Yeah. There's a really high unemployment rate. And so there's just like there's not a lot else to do. And most people don't have jobs. So they see running as like something that they can make money at and support themselves and their families. And most people, even my age, like they have families. So
right.
So I think I actually think a lot of Kenyans run for money, not for passion.
That's really interesting. So, sort of like, here's my like sort of naive, like, oh, it's a romantic place where everyone's just running for the pure joy of it. And you're like, no, it's a way to like make a living and not to have to, farm. That's really interesting. So how have you been welcomed and perceived since you've been there? I mean, because Americans, like, we have other options to, try the things. And are they looking at you with like more respect, or is it kind of like initially, was it like, oh, who's this person coming to our town, or a mixture of both?
So they call white people Mzungus. And I feel like the old and the young really like white people. And so you'll see like the kids that are going to school in the morning, they'll just start running with you.
Oh, wow.
When you're passing, like, how are you?
Yeah.
But a lot of people do see white people as having money. And so like maybe there's like another motive of why they're being nice sometimes. Or I've gotten like, will you marry me? And I don't know, I think that's kind of insulting because you don't really know me.
Right. Yeah.
They want a way out and some help, and
right.
if I'm here, I must have money because it's expensive to get here. Little do they know I got here because of a racing, like ticket,
right.
But and I talked to my mom about it, and I'm like, Mom, I'm rich over here, and she's like, that's ridiculous. Like, you're not rich. I'd love to go back to the U.S. and pay the bills there. So but to them, I am rich. And like a lot of people talk about going to the U.S. to run races and win money. And like one of my neighbors had said that, like, oh, if I could win $2,000 a month. And I'm like, yeah, you spend 3 months, you spend half that money.
Right. Oh my God. it's so expensive. Like I live in LA, as I mentioned, and like, it's just like for what I pay for, I mean, I like my apartment. But it's a studio, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, buddy, I hear you. He's agreeing with me. I'm not sure if the barking's coming through. But like my sister and brother-in-law live up in like the Sierras up in NorCal, and they, for like half of my rent, have like a house and a yard. And I'm like, and even that, by I'm sure like global standards, you know, they're $1,000 a month is probably like wildly expensive by the global standard. So it's, I think you mentioned that on Lindsay's show too, a little bit, talking about that.
It's $75 a month for this apartment. And
oh my God.
My friend spends 20.
That's crazy. Yeah. And so what is, I mean, so you're running twice a day out there, and, you know, meals are sort of, you have a cook, right? So what's like you're kind of living like, what's that?
The dinner's ready. So
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Maybe we'll do like 5 minutes more. Is that all right? And then great. Perfect. So before we go then, what are your impressions from New York? You have London ahead. That was it was like a 29-minute PR for you. I think New York was 26.
Yeah.
That's huge.
26.
That's crazy.
On the roads.
That's so fast.
I definitely feel like I'm meant for the marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that I took a really good amount of fuel like during the race. And
in the form of what?
I used Morton.
Oh yeah, that's kind of making the Instagrams blow up.
Yeah, it is for sure. So they weren't selling it in the US yet, so I bought it from Europe and had someone ship it over. But I just think that because I'm healthy and I eat normal, I can kind of take in maybe more fuel than some other people during the race. So even like from here and knowing how much people fuel when I'm here, like I have like 3 times the amount of how much they have. So
oh wow.
I just don't think that I just think that because of that, maybe the marathon will be my distance.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously an advantage. And before New York City Marathon, I hadn't really trained for a marathon. Like I had done a marathon.
Right. And you had the indoor world record.
Yeah. Which is really cool, but it was a little bit of a week for a marathon. So, which was a really cool event. I really liked it. I would probably go back actually, but 2:44 is just
right. Yeah.
It's a great time, especially if I'm not training for it. I was really happy at the time. But I just thought there was like a lot I could improve upon. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, like obviously New York City went really well. I was really happy. New York City is my home, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I think that's about your Boston is my New York City.
Yeah, it's an incredible race too. I mean, like anyone who hasn't done it, it's such a wild thing to kind of, everyone talks about First Avenue being the big, like once you kind of go into Manhattan for the first time. I actually found the first chunk of Brooklyn and the Park to be kind of the most insane. Because in the Park, everyone's right next to you. Like once you're on, you can be going up First Avenue and it's this huge street, right? But once you're in the Park, it's these little windy roads and like, you really feel like, oh, I'm here, Yeah. Do you recall a lot of that race, or were you just like kind of in the zone?
I do recall a lot of it, and after it was like I was with the girls for the first 2 miles, and then they kind of made a push to go a little faster. It was probably only a few seconds faster a mile than I wanted to go, but I just thought to myself, like, what does that mean after halfway?
Mm-hmm.
How many minutes am I in front of where I wanted to be, and how many minutes does that mean negative at the other end, right?
Right,
because a few seconds every mile, you're going to be like in the negatives by minutes at the end of the race. So I just ran by myself, and I remember being in parts of Brooklyn, and there are some like little turns, and I would kind of turn onto a road, and the women would be like turning off, so I could see them. So I felt like I was still in contact. And then, and I know a lot of people in New York City, so there are people like not just Kieffer, but saying Allie, like cheering for me. So that was really cool. And then once we got onto the bridge to go into Manhattan, I was catching people, and I was like, why are these girls going so slow? Like, this is a weird day. I thought I thought Mary Katani would push it from the beginning, and kind of people would go with her, and I'd be rolling people up at the very end of the race. And I felt like I was always in contact and connection with the group, and it never really pulled that far away from me. So.
And did that feel like, just like, I imagine you're trying not to like get too excited about that fact, like, oh, I'm actually in this thing, but you're still having to feed off of that emotion. So are you trying to like consciously kind of tamp that down, or are you just like going for it and seeing what happened?
Well, I was like just still running my race. Like
right.
I just felt like I was still on the paces that I wanted to run. And so I thought I'd be like, I was fine. And there were still people ahead of me that I wanted to beat. Like I had more of an American goal than like an overall goal, just because I don't really know how I match up to the other women, but
right.
the Americans, like, I've raced more. So I thought like by certain points of the race, I could catch certain people. And I really thought like it would be late, like getting into the park. You know, I could be a minute back or 2 minutes back even, because some people tank really bad. But the race went so different. Like people didn't go out.
It was a weird day, yeah, in some ways.
It was weird because the weather was so good, and that's usually when people kill it. But I think Mary Gattani knew that Shalane was just going to sit down here and thought, I don't feel good. I'm just going to, sit back myself.
Yeah.
So then nobody pushed it.
Right. Well, I remember the announcer saying that it was like early on, like a very like, they were surprised at the pace, because it wasn't like, this crazy thing. So what was it like then crossing the finish line and realizing that because you were 5th overall on the female side, right?
I remember I was 5th and I crossed the line and I looked at someone I knew and I was like, 5th?
Yeah. Wow.
I was like, oh my God. Like,
that's crazy.
It was crazy. And I didn't think like 2:29 was what I was going to run at all. I hadn't trained for that pace at all.
And you were self-coached at this point, or were you back with Brad Hudson at that point?
No, I coached myself the whole year of 2017, but I sent my thoughts to Brad. I was like, hey, what do you think?
I see.
I remember before nationals, and the track, Brad was like, yeah, if you can complete those workouts, then you'll make it to nationals. But I was like, kind of thinking like, can you tell me if I can complete those workouts?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But you were able to. Yeah.
Yeah, Brad definitely helped. He kind of was more like, don't go hard every single long run. Like do an easy one because you're going to crash before you get to the marathon.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. Like he helped me a lot more. And now he's actually, when I was there in December, was holding me back a lot. I wanted to do a lot more than he would let me.
That's probably the best. I think that's probably the biggest benefit of having a coach, to really kind of, because we're all type A, we all want to achieve like these big goals, whatever they may be. And like having someone to be like, I know, but just scale it back, save it all for race day.
Yeah.
And so London's in what, like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I found that before New York City, I just wanted to talk to people about the runs and the workouts, like how everything was going. And I didn't really maybe have that as much. And now I can call him like every day and be like,
right.
That was good. Like he's an enthusiastic guy and upbeat and energetic. So he's just a good person to have in my corner to maybe lift me up when I like need that and kind of pull me down when I'm getting a little too excited. For
sure. And so, well, I'll let you go because I know your dinner's ready. Maybe we can do a second round after London, but that's about what, like 8 weeks away, give or take? Maybe a little less than that?
April 22nd. So
okay. Yeah, about 8 weeks. Yeah. Well, man, and I think you mentioned on Lindsay's show, your goal is sub 225, I think, right?
Yeah. So
give or take.
Fastest U.S. woman ever is like 224.52, I think.
Okay.
So if I go on 224.1, that'd be awesome.
That's awesome. Well, man,
I just want to. It's been a good process so far, and a PR would be awesome. But I want to be in the hunt of the races still, and that probably won't happen at London because they're going for the world record.
Right. But you're really, I mean, it's exciting because like you're really just hitting this new stride in a lot of ways, even though you've been working at this thing for so long. But it seems like it's finally, it's always great to see the pieces come together, and having seen someone kind of go through these, ups and downs, it's very exciting to watch because it feels like you have like, you're sort of, obviously you're, an elite and you're putting these mega weeks and these great times, but it feels like you're kind of almost running for the, the little guy in some way, or the amateur with big aspirations, because of just this complete, the willful determination that you've had to do it. So I'm excited for you, and I'll be really curious to see how the race goes, and best of luck. And thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it's awesome. Great. Yeah. Enjoy your dinner. Happy eating.
Okay,
Take care. Bye. Take care.